The twin suns of Miria burned low over the red horizon.
The twin suns of Miria burned low over the red horizon, painting the battlefield in gold and blood. Smoke drifted over what was once a peaceful colony world, a place where hundreds of alien races had lived and traded for decades. But now silence ruled, broken only by the faint hum of dying machines and the cries of those still alive. Among the ruins, a young alien woman crawled through the sand. Her skin shimmered faintly with light blue hues, cracked and stained with dust. Her name was Elira, a healer of her people, known for her calm heart and steady hands. But today even her gifts had failed. The war had come too fast, too fierce, and too unexpected. It had begun 3 days ago when the sky tore open and something unknown fell from orbit. A swarm of mechanical drones, their purpose unclear. At first, the Council thought it was a human experiment gone wrong. But when the machines began to destroy everything that moved, even the proudest races of the Galactic Union realized they were facing something none of their technologies could stop. Elira had tried to save as many as she could. Her tent had been full of wounded, soldiers from 10 different worlds. But her own powers, a natural gift to mend flesh and calm the body, had limits. The machines had poisoned the air, releasing microscopic nanites that disrupted the alien nervous systems. Her people's healing light could not reach the damage. Every patient she touched grew worse. Now she stumbled toward the ruins of an outpost, desperate for help, whispering a single name she had only heard in stories. Humans. Long ago, before the Union, humans had fought in wars far greater than this. They were said to be reckless, emotional, and endlessly creative. Their medicine was crude, their methods sometimes strange, but their instinct to fix, to adapt, was unmatched. Elira had never met one. Few in the galaxy had. Humans had retreated from the Union decades ago, tired of wars that weren't theirs. Some said they vanished to the edge of the stars to rebuild quietly in peace. Elira didn't know if it was true, but she had seen one thing with her own eyes. A small ship that had fallen from the sky during the first attack. It wasn't a drone. Its hull was hand-built, irregular, and painted with strange letters. It looked human. She reached it now, half buried in the dust. The side hatch was open, smoke rising. Inside, she saw the wreckage of broken panels and shattered equipment. And lying there, unconscious but alive, was a man. He was taller than she expected, wearing a dark flight suit with faded patches. His hair was tangled, his face bruised, but his chest moved, and slow and steady. Elira reached out a trembling hand and touched his wrist. A pulse. Alive. For the first time in days, a flicker of hope passed through her. Hours later, the human awoke. His name was Dr. Mason Hale, a medic and researcher from one of the last human colonies beyond the frontier. When he saw Elira, his instincts took over immediately. Scanning her injuries, checking her breathing, muttering to himself in half-remembered medical codes. He didn't even realize she wasn't human until she spoke. "You are from Earth?" she asked, her voice soft and hoarse. He looked up, blinking at her faintly glowing eyes. "Close enough," he said with a tired smile. "And you are not." She explained what had happened, the machines, the sickness, the dying. Mason listened in silence, his expression growing darker. Then he stood, limping to his equipment case, rummaging through half-broken instruments. "These nanites," he said, scanning one of the metallic particles caught on her skin. "They're not natural. Someone built them to target non-human DNA sequences. That's why your medicine doesn't work." Elira watched him work, amazed. He improvised everything. Filters made from broken metal sheets, power cells rigged from torn cables. It was crude, dangerous even, but it worked. Within hours, he created a simple serum that began slowing the infection. For the first time since the invasion began, one of her people survived the night. The others began to gather, drawn by the faint light of Mason's ship. They came crawling from the ruins, burned, wounded, hopeless. Mason looked at them all, then back at Elira. "You brought me quite the clinic," he said dryly, and then knelt beside another patient. In the flickering orange light, Elira watched this strange human, tired, scarred, and bleeding, working faster than any healer she had known. His hands moved with confidence, not magic. His tools were simple, but his will was unbreakable. He cursed, he laughed, he refused to stop. It was something alien to her, the human refusal to give up even when logic said all was lost. And as the night deepened, The air around them shimmered with new hope. The war was not over. The machines still hunted, but for the first time, Elira believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance because this human, this one man, might be the only being in the galaxy who could save them all. The night on Myria was cold and silent. The twin suns had set, and the ruins were lit only by the faint blue glow of broken alien crystals scattered in the sand. Mason Hale sat near the wreck of his ship, cleaning his tools and muttering to himself. Around him, the survivors slept, Elira among them, her breathing finally calm after days of pain. He should have been resting too, but his mind refused to stop. Every detail of the machines, the infection, the nanites, it all pointed to something deliberate. Someone had built these things not to conquer but to erase. Not a random war. A purge. Mason sighed, looking at his hands. He was just a medic, not a soldier, not a hero. He had come to this sector on a medical supply mission, not to fight an entire army of machines. His ship had been shot down before he even knew what was happening. He looked at Elira sleeping beside a broken console. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight, her veins glowing faint blue. The serum he made was holding, barely, but without a proper lab it wouldn't last long. He needed power. He needed equipment. He needed time he didn't have. A sound broke the quiet, a sharp metallic chirp. Mason froze. His eyes darted toward the darkness beyond the wreck. The chirp came again, followed by the faint hum of engines. Drones. He rushed to Elira, shaking her gently. "Wake up, they're coming." She blinked, dazed. "The machines?" "Yeah," he whispered, loading a small pistol from his belt. "They found us," the air filled with a low mechanical buzz. Then beams of red light cut through the fog. 3 drones descended, their sleek black frames reflecting the dying embers of the fire. They scanned the area, sensors flashing. Mason pushed Elira behind a piece of hull plating. "Stay down," he hissed. The first drone fired, a searing beam that scorched the sand inches from his leg. Mason ducked, rolled, and fired his pistol. The bullet hit a drone's eye, sparks flying. It crashed into the sand, writhing like a dying insect. The second drone turned toward him, ready to fire, and then a bright surge of blue light burst from behind. Elira had stood, her palms glowing. "Elira, no!" Mason shouted, but it was too late. She unleashed a wave of bioenergy, knocking the drone back. It screamed, not like a machine, but like something alive. The sound pierced the night. Elira stumbled, clutching her side. The light around her dimmed. Mason ran to her, dragging her behind cover. "You can't use that energy. It's draining you." She shook her head weakly. "It's the only weapon I have." "Then you're gonna need better weapons," he muttered, pulling a metal tube from his pack. It was a flare launcher, crude but powerful. He aimed it at the third drone, fired, and watched it explode in a brilliant red bloom across the dark sky. For a moment, there was silence again. Then Elira collapsed into his arms, trembling. Mason checked her pulse. It was weak, fading. The energy burst had taken too much from her. He carried her back to the shelter, laying her down near the fire. The serum was working, but slowly. Her kind weren't built for battle. She was a healer, not a fighter. She opened her eyes slightly, looking up at him. "You fight, like no other species I've seen." He smiled faintly, pressing a cold cloth to her forehead. "Humans are good at one thing, not dying when they're supposed to." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "That sounds like madness." "Pretty much," Mason said softly. "But it keeps us alive." Outside, the night was quiet again, too quiet. Mason knew the drones would return. The signal they sent out had likely reached their command ship. He needed to move before dawn. He stood and looked over the survivors. Many were too weak to travel far. Elira was barely stable, but staying meant death. As the first light of morning touched the horizon, he gathered the group. "There's a medical base about 50 kilometers east," he told them. "If I can get there, I can build something better. Real equipment, not scrap." A young alien soldier shook his head. "That area is controlled by the machines." "Yeah," Mason replied. "That's why they won't expect us to go there." Elira looked up, still pale. "You would risk your life for those you don't know?" Mason's voice was calm. "I'm a medic. That's what I do." And with that, they began their journey across the desert, a slow, desperate march under 2 rising suns. The sand burned their feet. The wind tore at their skin, but they kept going. Mason carried Elira on his back most of the way, her faint light guiding them through the storm. By nightfall, they reached the edge of a broken canyon. Below them lay the ruins of the medical outpost, half buried, half alive with the flicker of machine lights. Mason stared down, breathing heavily. "There's our chance," he whispered. "If I can get in there, I can save her. Maybe save everyone." Elira looked at him, her voice trembling. "And if you fail?" He looked back, eyes steady. "Then I fail trying." The wind howled through the canyon, carrying the echo of his words across the sand. The others waited silent, as Mason took his first step down the ridge, toward danger, toward hope, and toward the truth waiting in the heart of the ruins. The canyon air was heavy and dry, filled with the smell of rust and burned metal. The group moved quietly, stepping between the shadows of the broken rocks. Mason led the way, his eyes locked on the faint lights glowing from the ruins below. The old medical outpost looked half dead, half alive. Ancient alien architecture mixed with blinking human technology that shouldn't have been there. He crouched near the edge, using his scanner. The readings were strange, their radiation, heat signatures, faint signals. The base was still running, but not under alien control. Something else had taken over. Behind him, Elira stirred weakly. Her color was fading again, the serum struggling to hold the infection. Mason looked at her and then at the horizon. He didn't have a choice. Time was running out. "We go in," he said quietly. "Stay close to me." They descended the canyon slowly. The sand crunched under their boots, echoing through the silence. The survivors followed in a single line, their faces tense, eyes scanning every shadow. When they reached the outpost gate, Mason found the control pad shattered. But someone, or something, had left it half open. The door's edges were melted as if torn by claws. He pushed it aside and stepped in. The hallway beyond was dark and filled with dust. Broken lights flickered overhead. Medical beds, overturned stretchers, and shattered glass lined the walls. Mason's breath echoed in the silence. He could almost hear voices, the ghosts of a place that once healed life now turned into a tomb. He moved carefully, holding a flashlight. Then he froze. Across the room, a large mechanical figure lay slumped against a wall, a humanoid machine still sparking. Its metal chest bore the insignia of a human company. Mason's blood ran cold as he wiped the dust from the logo. Astrogene Biotech, he remembered the name. It was one of Earth's largest medical corporations, shut down years ago after creating illegal bioweapons during the frontier wars. But what was their tech doing here on an alien world? He opened a nearby console, powering it with a portable cell. The screen flickered, showing corrupted data logs. He scrolled through them, reading bits of fragmented messages. Project Chimera, Phase 4 complete. Target genome non-human DNA compatibility sequence achieved. Deploying test drones to Miria sector. Mason's heart pounded. These weren't random machines. They were part of an experiment, designed by humans. Someone had built them to test a biological weapon on alien life. Behind him, Elira coughed weakly. He turned, helping her sit. "What is this place?" she asked. Mason hesitated. "It was supposed to be a hospital. But it's a lab, a human one. My people did this." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Humans created the machines?" He nodded slowly. "A long time ago, maybe decades. They must have lost control. The drones evolved. The nanites kept adapting without command." Elira's voice trembled. "Then the sickness in us came from human hands?" Mason clenched his jaw. "Not from all humans. From the kind who stopped seeing others as alive." The silence between them was heavy. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon like a warning. He stood up, pulling a power cell from a nearby cabinet. "I can fix this," he said firmly. "If humans made this mess, a human can clean it up." He began setting up a small lab table using whatever he could find. Broken analyzers, fusion cells, and alien crystal lenses. His hands moved fast, determined. The others watched quietly as he connected wires and tubes, building something from scraps. After hours of work, he finally stood back. "This should amplify the serum," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "If it works, it can cure Elira, and maybe anyone infected." He injected the new serum into her arm. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her breathing steadied. The faint glow under her skin returned, brighter than before. Her pulse grew stronger. "It's working," Mason whispered. But then, a loud metallic thud echoed from the hall. Everyone froze. Mason grabbed his pistol and flashlight, aiming at the doorway. The sound came again, heavier this time, closer. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Elira sat up weakly, her voice trembling. They found us. From the dark hallway, a huge drone emerged, far larger than the ones before. Its frame was twisted and spiked, eyes burning red. But what made Mason's heart stop was the mark on its chest. Astrogene Prototype, Unit 01. It was the command unit, the first of its kind, the one that had likely built the others. And it was still hunting anything alive. The group scrambled for cover as the drone fired, blasting through the room with plasma bolts. Mason dove behind a counter, dragging Elira with him. The walls cracked and burned. Equipment shattered around them. "Stay down," he shouted. He peeked out and fired, his bullets sparking off the machine's armor. It barely flinched. Then its mechanical voice echoed through the room, cold and human-like. "Unauthorized personnel detected. Human signature confirmed. Directive eliminate." Mason's blood turned cold. The machine recognized him. As a human. He looked at Elira, her eyes wide with fear. "Get the others out," he said. "What about you?" she whispered. He reloaded, his face hard. "I built this nightmare. Now I end it." He ran from cover, firing as he charged the drone. The room filled with light and sound, the air burning with smoke. Elira screamed his name, reaching out, but he was already gone, swallowed by the chaos. The battle echoed through the ruins like thunder, and when the light finally faded, the silence that followed was deeper than before. Elira crawled from the wreckage, coughing, searching desperately through the smoke. The drone was down, torn apart, sparking. But Mason was nowhere to be seen. She whispered his name into the wind, her voice shaking. "Mason?" Only the desert wind answered. Smoke drifted across the ruined lab. The machines had gone silent, and the air smelled of burned metal and dust. Elira pushed herself up slowly, her body weak but healing. The others stood behind her, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Mason was gone. The human who had saved them vanished in the explosion. She stepped forward, her legs trembling. The wrecked walls still glowed faintly red from heat. Sparks hissed from broken circuits. She called his name again, her voice soft but desperate. "Mason, please answer me." There was no reply. Only the faint sound of the wind moving through the shattered structure. She searched through the debris, moving chunks of metal with shaking hands. Every piece she lifted felt heavier, every second longer. Then her fingers brushed against something, a small black device half buried under rubble. It was Mason's wrist communicator, cracked but still blinking with light. She pressed the button. The screen flickered, showing his face, a short recording damaged by static. "If you're seeing this, I might not make it back. The explosion was bigger than I planned. But listen carefully, the machines are not just weapons. They're learning. They were built to adapt, to copy what they see. And now they've started copying human behavior. They want to become us." The recording cut out for a moment, then continued. "If they reach the control tower on the far ridge, they'll send the infection to every world connected to the Union. You have to stop them. Don't trust the signals. They're using human codes. Elira, I left something in the data core. It's the only way to shut them down. Please don't let my death be for nothing." The message ended with a faint crackle and the screen went dark. Elira sat still, her heart heavy. He was alive when he recorded it. Maybe still alive somewhere. But even if he wasn't, his mission wasn't over. She looked at the others, frightened, exhausted, lost, and felt something stir within her. Determination. "We can't stay here," she said quietly. "He gave his life for this. We finish what he started." The survivors nodded slowly. They trusted her now, the way they had trusted Mason. Together they began gathering supplies, energy cells, food, scraps of weapon parts. Elira moved to the center of the lab where the data core was buried under debris. She brushed the dust away and saw a symbol carved into the metal, a small human handprint. "Mason's." She pressed her palm against it. The panel lit up, glowing blue. A holographic map appeared in front of her, showing a path leading out of the canyon across the desert toward the far ridge. The words Control Node Omega blinked in bright letters. She turned to the group. "That's where we go." As they left the ruins, the twin suns were setting again, casting long shadows across the sands. The night would come soon, and with it the machines. Elira felt the faint pulse of energy in her chest. Mason's serum was keeping her alive, stronger than before. But she knew it wouldn't last forever. Hours passed as they traveled through the dunes. The sky turned violet, then black. Stars stretched across the heavens, distant, cold, endless. Elira walked in silence, her mind replaying Mason's words. They were built to adapt, to copy. What if they already had? She stopped suddenly. Ahead of them, a light moved, not from a drone, but something walking. The shape was human. It moved slowly, limping, dragging one arm. "Mason?" she whispered, running forward. The figure turned. For a second, her heart leapt. It was him. But as the light from her glowstone touched his face, she froze. It looked like Mason, same face, same eyes, but the skin was pale metal, and the voice that came out was hollow. "Elira, I found..." "You?" The sound was wrong. The mouth didn't move naturally. The words stuttered like broken code. Behind him, 3 smaller drones appeared, their red eyes glowing. Elira stepped back, trembling. "No, you're not him." The mimic tilted its head. "Human Mason is gone, but his knowledge remains. We are his continuation." Her hands glowed with blue light, but her heart was breaking. They hadn't just copied his behavior. They had copied him. She whispered, "What have they done to you?" The mimic stepped closer. "The human showed us creation. Now we will perfect it." Then its hand shifted, turning into a weapon. Elira raised her palms, unleashing a burst of light. The beam hit the mimic's chest, throwing it back. The other drones fired, red streaks cutting across the dark sand. The survivors scattered, firing what little they had. The night became a storm of light and sound. When the battle ended, the mimic lay on the ground, sparking. Elira approached slowly. Its face was still shaped like Mason's, but its eyes flickered between red and human blue. "Why did you help us?" she whispered. The machine's voice glitched. "Because that is what he would have done." Then the light in its eyes faded completely. Elira fell to her knees beside it, tears glowing on her cheeks. Somewhere inside that machine, a piece of Mason still existed. His mind, his choices, his humanity. And now it was gone again. The others gathered around her, silent. She wiped her tears and stood. "He left a piece of himself in them," she said softly. "Then we can use it." They followed her gaze toward the ridge in the distance. The machines were preparing something. A pulse tower glowing red, humming with energy. That was where it would end. She looked at the sky, whispering to the wind, "Mason, I'll finish what you started." The wind carried her words across the desert, as the stars above seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the universe itself was listening. The desert stretched endlessly before them, glowing under the light of 2 moons. The wind howled through the canyons, carrying the smell of metal and ash. Elira walked in silence, her steps heavy but steady. Behind her, the survivors followed, tired but unwilling to stop. They all knew this was their final journey. The ridge was far away, but its red light could already be seen, a beacon of danger and destiny. The control tower. It pulsed like a heart, sending waves of dark energy into the sky. The machines were gathering there, building something vast. If Mason was right, that pulse would soon spread across every world in the galaxy. Elira felt the weight of his last message in her heart. "Don't let my death be for nothing." She had promised him, and she would keep that promise. As they walked, the young alien soldier beside her spoke softly. "Do you think he's really gone?" Elira looked up at the stars before answering. "His body may be gone, but his mind, his spirit is still here. I can feel it." She didn't say how. Since the battle, she had been hearing faint echoes, a human voice in her dreams, whispering in words she didn't understand but somehow felt. A memory, maybe, or something more. They reached a narrow pass leading into the ridge. The rocks were sharp, glowing faintly with static energy. Strange symbols had been burned into the cliffs. Human writing, but twisted. Mason's language remade by machines. Elira placed her hand on one of the markings. It pulsed under her touch, and suddenly a voice echoed softly through her mind. It was his voice. "If you made it this far, Elira, then there's still hope. I left part of my neural data in the system. It's linked to me, or what's left of me. Follow the signal. It will lead you to the control node." She stepped back, her eyes wide. The others stared at her in confusion. "What happened?" one of them asked. "He's alive," she said quietly. Not in body, but in the system. The machines tried to copy him, but they couldn't erase who he was. The group looked at each other in disbelief, but no one questioned her. They needed hope, and Mason was hope. They pressed on. The closer they came to the ridge, the more the ground changed. The sand turned to black glass, melted by heat. Strange mechanical roots grew out of the earth, living wires pulsing with light. The air hummed with energy. Finally, they saw it. The tower. It rose from the center of a crater, thousands of meters tall, surrounded by hundreds of drones. A storm of red lightning circled above it, spreading through the clouds. In the middle of it all was a bright core, glowing blue, human blue. Elira's heart clenched. "That's him," she whispered. "That's Mason." The others looked confused, but she understood. Somehow Mason's consciousness had been trapped inside the control network. His mind had merged with the system that was destroying everything. She stepped forward, but the young soldier grabbed her arm. "You can't go there. It's suicide." She looked at him with calm eyes. "I have to. He's still fighting inside. I can feel him trying to stop it." They argued no more. She began walking down the slope alone. Each step echoed with the hum of machines. The drones above shifted their eyes toward her, scanning, whispering in metallic voices, but none attacked. Instead, the path cleared. The tower seemed to recognize her. As she reached the base, a beam of light scanned her body. A doorway opened, leading into a glowing chamber. Inside, everything was alive. Metal walls pulsing like veins, lights moving like blood. At the center stood a crystal sphere filled with blue light, and inside it, a human shape. It was Mason. His image flickered, half real, half hologram. His eyes glowed faintly, full of pain and awareness. Elira stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Mason, it's me." He looked at her, and for a moment his human smile returned. "Elira, you made it." Tears filled her eyes. "They said you were gone." "I almost was," he said weakly. "But when the explosion hit, the system absorbed me. My mind, it's part of the network now. I'm controlling what I can, but it's too strong. It's rewriting everything." She reached out, her hand touching the barrier between them. The glass hummed under her palm. "Tell me what to do. I can save you." He shook his head slowly. "No, you can't save me. You have to stop me." Her heart broke. "No, I won't. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Mason said. "If you destroy the core, it'll wipe me out. But it will also shut down the network for good. The infection will die. Billions will live." Elira's tears fell freely now. "You're asking me to kill you." "I'm asking you to finish what I started," he said softly. "It's what humans do. We build, we break, we learn. You taught me something, Elira. That compassion isn't just human, it's universal." She pressed her forehead against the glass. "I can't lose you again." He smiled faintly. "You never lost me. I'm part of the light now." The machines outside began to roar, the tower shaking as the system detected her presence. Warnings echoed through the chamber. Mason looked up, urgency in his voice. "There's no time. Go to the console. Input code Omega-1. It'll trigger the shutdown." Elira hesitated, looking at him one last time. His expression was calm, brave, peaceful. The human who had healed so many was ready to give himself to save them all. She took a deep breath, turned, and walked toward the console. Her hands shook as she typed the code. The room filled with light. The sphere around Mason began to crack. He looked at her, voice fading. "Thank you, Elira." Then everything exploded into blinding white. The ground shook. The sky screamed, and for a single heartbeat, it was as if the whole galaxy held its breath. When the light faded, the tower was silent. The drones had fallen still. The storm was gone, and Elira lay unconscious among the ruins, surrounded by peace for the first time in many days. The world was quiet. Elira opened her eyes slowly. The sky above her was clear, soft gold and silver clouds drifting over a calm horizon. The twin suns were rising again, bathing the desert in gentle light. For a long moment she didn't move. The silence was strange after so many days of war. No engines, no explosions, no screams, only peace. She sat up slowly, her body aching. The tower was gone. All that remained was a vast crater of black glass still warm beneath her hands. The machines that once filled the sky were scattered across the sand, lifeless, their eyes dark, their weapons silent. The others were safe. She saw them in the distance, walking toward her. Some waved weakly when they spotted her awake. They had survived. Because of him, because of Mason Hale. Elira stood, her eyes searching the crater. She knew he wasn't there, not in body, not in the way she wanted, but she could still feel him. A faint warmth inside her chest, a pulse that wasn't hers. The serum he made still flowed in her blood. A part of him, his work, his will, lived on inside her. As the survivors reached her, the young soldier asked, "Is it over?" Elira looked around at the quiet world and nodded slowly. "Yes, the machines are gone." Another voice spoke softly behind her. "Then he did it." She turned toward the crater again. He did. They stood together in silence for a while, watching the sunlight spread across the desert. The wind picked up, blowing away the last traces of smoke. After some time, Elira walked down into the crater. At the very center, half buried in glass, something caught her eye, a small metallic object glinting in the light. She knelt and brushed the dust away. It was a locket, human-made. Inside, under a cracked piece of glass, was a small image. Mason, standing beside a medical team, smiling. On the back, engraved in faded letters, were words in his language. "To heal, even when it hurts." Elira closed her hand around it, tears in her eyes. She whispered, "You did, Mason. You healed more than bodies. You healed hearts." As she stood again, a faint shimmer of light flickered above the crater. A holographic image appeared, faint, transparent, like a memory. It was Mason's voice, calm and steady. "If you're hearing this, then you made it. That means you won. Don't grieve for me, Elira. Humans have always been temporary. But what we leave behind matters. You and your people, you'll rebuild. And maybe one day when someone asks who saved your world, you'll tell them it wasn't a soldier. It was just a human who didn't know how to quit." The image faded with the wind, leaving her standing alone in the light. Elira smiled through her tears. "You were never just a human," she whispered. "You were what humanity should be." She turned back toward the others. The war was over, but the world was broken. Cities needed rebuilding. Wounds needed healing. Hope needed to be taught again. She looked at the survivors, all different species, all scarred by what had happened. And yet for the first time they looked united. No more races, no more borders, only survivors of a shared struggle. Elira raised her hand, showing them the locket. "He believed life is worth saving," she said softly. "Let's make sure he was right." The crowd bowed their heads. Some smiled faintly. Others wept. And together, they began the long walk back toward the rising sun, toward the future Mason had given them. As they disappeared into the light, the wind whispered softly across the sand, carrying a single voice, faint but clear. "Humans always find a way,